Hiya, it's Xavier. Welcome to my bonsai retreat. And you know, I'm so excited. 2 more days and Yella's going to be winging his way through the bonsai garden front door. Even the crows are shouting in joy. I know, it's going to be so much fun. This great big cobra maple, this is going to be the centerpiece for one of the videos he's going to work on with me. That big question you ask yourself when you've let something go completely out of control. When is it too late to prune? That thing's a mess, but it's going to be a prize tree and Yella's going to help me achieve that. I hope. Anyway, I'm sure you want to know the answer to those 2 very important questions that I said I was going to answer in the last video about maple pruning. And also I'm sure you want to know how we get on with the other examples and indeed that maple forest. So let's crack on, shall we? Now, I'm not going to overly bore you with this next point, but one of the things you want to achieve is to make sure you've got a good, healthy root area for your trees' roots to grow. And to ensure that happens, you need to make sure that you've got all the weeds out. And you also need to make sure that the soil itself is friable and indeed allows good transfer of water and oxygen. So make sure every single bonsai you've got do thorough soil inspection, clearing away all your mosses, pulling out your weeds, and again make sure you dig down. You don't want to leave the roots of those weeds in place. Certainly if it's dandelions, just get that surface all cleared away. Old leaves, anything like that, because what you don't want to do is encourage a place where potentially you get disease or fungal problems or anything like that occurring. But the main reason for me is that you get that good exchange and balance of oxygen and water, which is what you really need. And then we ask ourselves the same question, giving it a spin. What do I want to achieve with my pruning this time? So the first question I ask myself, is my trunk as thick as I want it to be? And have I got a good taper towards my my trunk line, or indeed here it's a double trunk, so am I happy with what I've got? The answer is yes. So I'm happy with the trunk thickness, I'm happy with the relative taper that I've got here. You know, this isn't going to be a show tree. If I look at that, you know, it's got a very sort of false looking bend on it. It's quite I don't like it that much, but I can't do anything about it now. And sometimes you have to look at a tree and say, if I can't actually do anything about what is probably in this case a more minor defect, then just live with it. But the question is now, I've got the primary trunk structure branches coming up this way, this one, so I'm not going to have an internode length longer than that higher up. So I look at this, I've got 2 from here. So really I can already be saying, right, I don't need to thicken anywhere. Do I need to do any healing? Well, I've got 2 great big trunks here and I've got healing going on here. So I'm just going to remove, in fact we'll see here, it's rolled over nicely. Any healing below this point here is going to happen really well with these 2 thick healthy branches. I don't need any more branches below it, so that's not a question I need to ask. So I now need to say is, really all I'm trying to achieve now is tertiary structure. I've got my trunk, I've got my primary branches. I need to establish to make sure those secondary branches are there, but I'm now looking at branch structure, which means I'm looking at back budding. I want to find those buds in closer to bring the internodes in. So what I'm going to do is clean it all up first and then show you what I'm going to prune back. And when I say cleaning up, all I'm going to do is remove minor stuff that is just growing from junctions, things like that, which is basically just going to waste the tree's energy. We've got one here, which I'm never going to want. If you've got a junction with 2, you don't want any stuff there growing, taking energy away. Just in here, we've got branch coming up, secondary branch there, and behind it, there's a little branch just here. So we just want to remove that. And as I say, often when I'm doing pruning, when there's lots of growth around, I just remove all the stuff that's wrong. So basically I'll go around all the junctions and take away small shoots and just clean up the corners and everything, so we've just got two coming from one point. But an example of this is if we look at the internodal distances and gaps, they're all pretty well the same. This great big long one, never going to want, so we can remove that straight away. And what we want is the little back budding that's going here. And the same goes here. If we look at this, they're all short. So what we're not going to want is that great big long one there. So I can already cut that off. And with these bigger cuts, I will indeed put just a little bit of cut paste on the ends there, just to seal them, stop infections going in, and just helps in the healing process. Goes without saying that all of this is great cutting material. So knowing now that I want to make sure that my internodal distances haven't gone out too far, it's really quite straightforward in terms of cutting back. Where I have no internode, I know that the bud's going to come right back at the first junction where I've got a little internode here. So all I do now is go around the tree and pick up and sort out. So then I'm just going to go around the rest of the tree and do exactly the same thing. I'm looking now at finding the places where I want the buds to come out for the final, either the secondary or indeed the tertiary branching. And as you saw from here, I can really do big bold decisions. Something under here I don't want, get rid of that. Here, low down, we've got about 1.5 centimeters for the internodal distance, which means I don't want anything. I definitely don't want anything going to be the same size, which we're going to do that. And the same thing here. Great big long 5 centimeters, whatever. Cut that right back. Often the hardest thing is when you run it high up the tree and you've got this great clump of loads and loads of growth. Look at it all, loads of it high up. It's taking loads of energy, but you've got to ask yourself the straightforward question: internode distance from there to there. It's actually a bit longer than I want it to be, but because this one is that length as well, I can go with that for now. All I need to do here, out of what, there's 9, 10 different growths, I've just got to pick 2. Just 2. Probably horizontal or slightly upward growing shoots, and then just remove everything else. Downward, get rid of those. That's easy. So I always pick the downwards first. Then I'll have a look and say, okay, we've got some stubs. Then I'm looking at branch orientation. Help me decide. Here, if you look at that, we've got great big wide distribution, but above it, well, we really haven't got any other choices there. So I'll go back to there, go back to there. That gives us those horizontals. Don't want the upward one, and I don't want that upward one. So that resolves a great big clump out there. And, you know, looking at it, I may well later next year come back and decide, or the end of this year, and cut it right back. I do think that's quite a long internode, but we'll see how it develops from there. So I've asked myself the questions. Trunk, I'm happy. Healing, we'll have a look at that in a sec. Happy with the taper, the primary branches, secondary branches I'm still developing, and overall this is fine in development. I've sealed off some of the bigger cuts, but you know, I'm liking it. There's some parts I don't like. I'm not a favourite. This isn't a favourite for me, but it's part and parcel of the tree as it is. My only option, if I didn't like this, would actually be to be cutting it all the way back to there. And I did think about trying to develop that potentially, but you know, in the big scheme, it's not that bad. But that false bend, it's not my favourite. But the rest of these things, the wounds have been healing pretty good. So let's just take this off. So let's just have a look at this wound and just see how it's healing and whether or not I actually need to open that up again. Clean it out a bit. And again, I just use a bristle brush. You can get different packs. I think this is nylon bristle. I think what I'll do is just using a scalpel blade, just carefully open up cambium again. And what we're trying to do is get more of it to roll over. You can see there, the cambium has just been opened up there. Everything in there is actually dead. It's going to take a very long time to try and roll that over much. Just wanted to get a bit more roll over, that's all. And you can see there, nice layer of putty, even, covering all that. And I'll leave that until it peels away, but probably I'll have a look at it again this time next year. Again, with these being nice, strong, healthy branches, that will continue to draw the sap through there, and then we'll get the rollover we want there. Now, this one, which has been wired up, I'm going to take the wire off in a minute, is actually a perfect example of how things can go really badly wrong. It can happen so easily. We allow stuff to grow, get lots of great healthy growth. We think it's doing really well, and we miss a really quite crucial thing. And it comes back to asking the question, what am I trying to achieve? Trunk thickness. The thickness of the trunk of this one is exactly the same as the two you've just seen. In fact, side by side, this one actually has a thicker trunk. If I take that distance and go all the way up there, my first junctions are all the way up here. Proportionally wise, I need branches a lot lower down, or I need this trunk to be a lot thicker. In a little basket like this isn't going to get much thicker. I've actually let the tree grow too tall. So tell you what, I'm going to take the wire off, and then I'm going to discuss what I think my next option is for this. But before I do that, let's quickly have a look at a forest, because this is a common problem many of us face as beginners, certainly, with our forests. Yeah, we've got forests like these, we've put all our trees into it, and you know, we're really happy, get loads and loads of growth, and clearly I'm going to need to prune most of this growth off because it's unruly. I can either prune to profile, but again, the question we all ask ourselves is, what am I trying to achieve? Because a lot of us realize that perhaps we shouldn't have put these thin pencil thickness trunks in here, and we want these to be bigger, thicker trees. And we say, can I achieve that? Well, there's two ways of achieving that. The first way is to take them all out, put them into big pond baskets and just let them grow and let them thicken up. That can take a couple of years. Put them in a growing bed. That too can take a couple of years. Or we can accept that we've put it in a lovely little forest group, and often the groups that we've created are really quite nice, and say, what I'm going to do is proportionally, I'm going to try and let each of these thicken. To do that, I basically need to pick one branch or a central core line somewhere on each tree that I allow to just grow unabated. And normally it'll be something that's coming right from the top, so that all the energy is pulled up through the tree, and then all the energy is distributed and goes up there, and you want them to grow sort of 1, 2, 3 foot. That will be your best way of actually thickening these. What a lot of us try and do, and this is through clip and grow, is we will basically clip everything back to our closest internode buds, and then we wait. Proportionally, over time, they will thicken. And you know, in 10 years' time, the trunks on those could well be another half the thickness again. Look really good. But generally, if you want to have a certain thickness of trunk in a forest, you want to get the trees to that thickness first before you put the forest together. So it's no different than what you've just seen me do with the other two trees, but hopefully I'll be able to demonstrate to you what I mean by a little sneaky way of trying to thicken those trunks. And there we go. And I know some of you might say, look, I wanted to see every single process, but the processes, as I demonstrated on the individual trees, ask yourself the question, what am I trying to achieve with each tree? Have I got the trunk thickness right? Have I got the taper right? Have I got the primary, secondary branches at the right thickness? Is there anywhere I'm trying to wound heal? And in particular, the question I put to you with this forest, just so you want to know, this is what I pruned off, loads. And there's a primary aim with that. Got leaves all over my silverback. is I've managed to get two of them, this one and this one, where it's up by the apical region, it's pointing upwards, because you don't want to thicken a branch that's coming out sideways or downwards. You really don't want it to affect the overall shape of the central trunk line. So what will happen is if I let these ones continue to grow up, all the energy will be drawn through the whole trunk and it should thicken proportionally. We'll let those two grow and just see. I couldn't find appropriate branches anywhere near the apical regions that I could really afford to let shoots to grow out, so I've cut them back. And it will be interesting to see if this one and indeed this one over time thicken more than the other ones. When we're looking for where we want our back budding to occur, you'll often see that when I do my pruning in the autumn time, I prune back to two sets of buds, i.e. two levels, so that I can eventually at this time come back and cut right back to the earliest. Show you exactly what I mean. Just here, it was originally a shoot, quite a large long. The shoot was about 4 centimeters. I cut back all the growth to there. But if you look in close, you can see that we've got dormant buds there, and further back, we've got dormant buds there. So I want those ones. So all I need to do is just cut there. That will cause those to activate. Same here. Those ones will be activating. Those ones, and indeed ones down there. So for now, that's all I need to do. There's one other big task that has to happen with this, but we'll show that right at the end. But otherwise, very, very happy. And I think as a little silverback forest, I think that's pretty interesting. Definitely an interesting, very, I don't know, slipper-like, Dawn Isaac, primitive ceramic. Fantastic. So let's go back to the one with the wire, shall we? And the one that I made the mistake on. As I said, for me, you know, I've allowed it to go too tall for the relative branch thickness. All I can try and do is to make it an elegant, thin, potentially literati style, but there's nothing that I can really bend down. So I'm looking for either something to grow from junctions here, or indeed some back budding along here. Maples do that, they'll back bud from further down. I think with this one I need to be careful and keep an eye and see if there's anything lower down. Now the thing about it is, if all this growth up here remains strong and long, the tree has no real great desire to put any energy down the base here. Apically dominant, all the energy goes upwards. If I want to try and encourage stuff like this, I am going to have to cut this back. Bearing in mind that all this length is useless to me, I'm not going to put it in a growing bed. I'm going to see what I can do with it, keeping it in this. And it'd be interesting to see how it can develop. As it stands right now, this would be one of the trees I'd say, let's just make it into a feeder tree for future air layers and plant it in the garden. Definitely, that's probably the best option for this one. Even in here close, there's a real problem. I'll show it to you actually. And maybe I'm being hypercritical, but that actual branch coming out there is very, very straight from what actually is quite an old curving point to here. I'm actually inclined to remove that, maybe put a bit more wire on it, just see. But as that stands, or maybe it could work if I actually put wire over that way. That might actually be the option, wire back on. Either way, what I do have to do is cut everything back. And with all that being removed, hopefully the tree will put energy further down. Yeah, ideally I want some buds lower down to come out. This is what it is. You do need to keep on top of your trees as you develop them. Every single time you prune a tree, you have to ask yourself, what am I trying to achieve? If you do that, then certainly you can avoid this potential problem happening, because at no point was I ever trying to achieve that great length before a branch with that thickness. So I'm going to whack some wire on, and then I think we'll show you how the other ones are finished off, but I've got another 30 or 40 to do. We won't show you those. And as you can see, wires applied. I've actually put a little bit of a tourniquet or whatever on to help keep that bend down. And as I say, I can continue to tighten it and bring it down if I want. I'm looking obviously for buds to come elsewhere, and it may be that I continue, actually if you look at it from this way, that potentially I remove this big branch here and continue to grow from this one here. If I was going to keep this, I could remove that, but for now I've reduced the height. I think there's a little bit of interesting shape there. Hey, it's got a future. And the two other things I need to do, first of all, it involves the fertilizer. Give them all a good drenching. And with the fertilizer this time of the year, you know, I'll do it probably twice a month. Again, the advantage if you've got pellets or you've got little tea bags is that, again, it's giving you a continual slow release of nutrients. But I've found that for me, this is the best way to ensure that I fertilize all my trees. Fertilized, one more thing, especially this time of the year, because it's what you don't want to happen with those lovely new budded leaves that are going to come out in another couple of weeks' time. And that is to give them a good spray of bug spray. And this is a Yadam soap with a slight mix of Yadam sulfur. And the video where I show you the makeup of that, we found in the description. But give them all a good soaking. And once you've done this, leave them in a very shaded spot, and that should keep your maples safe until you next get around to them in probably 5-6 weeks time. So with those all done, safely put away in a shady spot of the garden, they'll get another water probably in about half an hour's time. That'll help soak that liquid fertilizer through. What I don't want it doing is sitting there and cooking roots. Unlikely to happen, but I do like to give them a water fairly shortly afterwards. Same questions. Beautiful little tree here, and all I've got to do, it's got the trunk, it's got the taper, it's got the primary, secondary branch structure, it's got the height. I'm not trying to develop this in any more way. The healing that's there, I've done about as much as I can do. All I need to do now is basically prune it back to profile, and that's following exactly the same process that I've done with all the others, and is relatively straightforward and painless. And there it is, all pruned up. Light can get through, wind, breeze can get through. This is the exact thing that we want for a nice healthy bonsai to continue to grow through the spring. Say I've reduced the leaves from 2s to 1s, and to be fair, we'll be talking about semi-defoliation, full leaf defoliation, probably with a couple of other maples in about 4 weeks time. Anyway, I've asked the question, what do I want to achieve? And I've achieved it. There's only one more thing left to do. We always need to look after our tools. I've got my 80 grit sanding block. I'm just going to take away all that gunk that's on there, because I want my tools to last as long as my bonsai. Some bonsai camellia oil, nice clean white cloth. Well, I don't know whether it has to be white per se, but anyway, and get those blades nice together. Also make sure that in the working joints and all that bit there, and then that means that can be put away and be ready for the next time you use it when you want to deal with your very delicate and expensive Japanese maple bonsai. So hopefully you've got exactly what you need from that, whether you're a novice beginner or whether you had a few more years experience like I have. Hopefully that's answered the question, and hopefully you're going to feel confident to get in there and do exactly what I've just done to the forest that you saw at the beginning. And it really is as simple as saying, what do I want to achieve, and knowing exactly how to get there. Wind is loving this. I think this is looking fantastic. And in fact, all I'm going to do now is a couple of other forests. And I know that I think it was Sue who asked whether I could do a video through the year showing updates on those forests. Well, you're seeing the other two that still need to be pruned, applying exactly the same principles. It'll take about half an hour. The rest of them, well, those maples are now back in their locations where they're getting partial full sun, some dappled sunlight, but they're getting looked after. What's best of all, they're getting lots of air, lots of light. And that is ideally what we need. So while I've got to go off, do more pruning, do more prep for Yella's impending visit, the days are ticking down now. I'll tell you what, that's a great video to watch to remind you what you should be doing over the next few months. Apart from that, happy bonsaiing, God bless, cheers.